Hey, it's Collin. So today I want to talk about my 2 years of ownership with the Porsche 911 997.1 Carrera 4S. So today I just sold it, have the deposit, guys coming to pick it up tomorrow. It was my first Porsche 6-speed manual. It's been an awesome car so far. I've loved owning this car. It's been great. My ownership experience has been that of ease with this 997. It's been surprisingly easy to maintain with just some basic maintenance here and there. I live on a dirt road, so I've had to maintain it through that, give it car washes, take care of the vehicle, and it's been pretty great so far. So a couple things first would be that with the 997, I wanted to stick with a manual transmission. They have the Tiptronic transmission, which isn't so good. So it took me about 9 or so months to find this vehicle, and I finally found it, picked it up back in 2018, and it's been great since. So what I'm going to show you today is a little bit of my ownership and how it's gone. So here it is. It looks great. When I bought the vehicle back in 2018, it never had a detail. I got a good deal on the car because they never put it through the full maintenance search or anything like that, and I picked it up and got a great deal on it. So I ended up cleaning it up. Just recently, back in June, there was an accident with this vehicle, and what happened was a tire from a semi-truck flew up, hit the vehicle. It hit this bumper, hit the hood, damaged the underside of the vehicle under here, and also caused some damage to the side skirt. So since that, I took the vehicle to Automark in Farmington Hills. Excellent place. If you live in Michigan, take your exotic car there because they do an excellent job. Best in the business. So I ended up getting a bumper that was resprayed. Got a resprayed bumper, resprayed hood, resprayed side skirt, new underbody as well. So with that, I had some additional damage that was done to the vehicle when I purchased it. A couple things that happened too was I had some paint chips all over the place because it never had PPF done on it. And then another thing on top of it was that I had a dent about here. So I had that removed. That was about $800. Had that removed, cleaned up, had a new film for the paint protection added, along with I had a dent here on this fender that happened when apparently in the garage when my parents were home, a shovel fell on the vehicle. So paid to get that fixed. That was a few $100s as well. Got that cleaned up with PDR. Other than that, the vehicle's been great. The last owner plasti dipped it for some reason. I never replaced these badges. I was going to. Also here, it's been good. Great wheels. I haven't had to do brakes or anything like that. Just oil changes, regular maintenance. Also got an alignment because I live in Michigan. So got that cleaned up. But other than that, it's been fairly good. The car's pretty clean. So I had a few things that really annoyed me about this car. So the first thing was with the gas tank here. You'll see that you have the cap here, but there's nowhere to put the cap. It just kind of sits there. It's supposed to hang over, but I wish there was some place where you could just actually put it in and it would stay to hold the cap. But unfortunately, that's not something with these cars. Another issue is that with these vehicles, sometimes you have oil, you have gas that will drip from the gas cap once you're done filling up. It'll leak onto that, and that's really annoying, especially for paint. Keep that clean. I ended up having another annoyance, which was with these turn signal lights. Apparently there's 2 bulbs in these on both sides, and what happened is when one of them goes out, it'll still show you that the light's working, but it'll tell you that it went out, and you can't really tell if it went out or not. It'll just keep giving you this warning even when you replace it. So after that, we ended up getting these replaced at Automark as well, so that's been fixed. On the inside of the vehicle, it's pretty much the exact same as we left off. Of course, it's higher mileage. I'm at 69,000 miles, and that's what I sell it at. So here, as you can see, I got the Sport Chrono package, the manual transmission. I also have the radio system, which is aftermarket from Kenwood. I have the adaptive sports seats with the Porsche Crest headrest, which is kind of a harder option to find, these cars with the adaptive sports seats, especially this spec. Same thing at the back seats, just pretty nice standard back seats. A couple things here is there's some scuffing, of course, along this wear item here of the plastic. Other than that, you got some wear item. You have the wear on the seats, which is not too bad at all. There's no holes, nothing like that. Other than that, it's been pretty good the whole time. So I've enjoyed driving it. I've enjoyed my ownership, and now it's going to be on to its next owner. One of the other annoyances of owning this car is when it comes to the oil. Now, it's just like a BMW where you don't have a dipstick. So you have to go into the settings, go into oil, select oil, and then you have to wait for it to measure. It's not exactly the most accurate, depends on if you're on a hill or not, any incline, decline. But it will give you it. I wish there was an actual dipstick, but unfortunately there isn't. During my ownership, I ended up adding a radar detector. With that, it was already hardwired into the vehicle, so you'll see that I have it mounted in here. It runs underneath the dash, up through, all the way up to the headliner, and up and over, and then comes down through the mirror. So since 2018, I ended up putting 10,000 miles on this Porsche 911, and it's been great ever since. And especially if you're looking for a car that's a bit more than a BMW, a bit more than an Audi, but still kind of in that mid-range. So I bought this car in the 45,000 range. It's been great. I haven't really had any issues. It's extremely reliable. I put 10,000 miles on the vehicle, and I've taken care of it pretty well. It hasn't cost me a lot of money. I'd say the most expensive part of owning this vehicle is paying the tax on it and paying the insurance. Everything else is fairly maintainable, and especially if you do all the work yourself. So I would recommend this vehicle. It handles incredibly well. Especially for that price point, you really can't find anything with as nice of quality, handles well, and will give you that experience that you're looking for and desiring. With this vehicle as well, with the manual transmission, it's absolutely incredible going through those gears. The feeling of shifting that gearbox and being able to downshift and rev match and even clutchless shifting is just incredible with this vehicle. I've never had any other vehicle I've been able to really drive that gives you this feedback. I've driven Audi R8 V10 Pluses. I've driven some other vehicles that were in that price point, and everything is just easy. But with this car, you have to work for it, and that's something I love because you have to rev out those gears to get up to that speed. And you can catch up to those vehicles, but you really have to work for it, and I love that. So with a 7,000 RPM redline, this car is just absolutely handles well. It's incredible. And in my opinion, this is one of the best sports cars you can buy for sub $50,000. You can find these for in the 40s, low 50s. You can find these in the 30s even. And you just have to be sure to keep an eye out for maintenance especially. So, of course, the number one thing is you have to keep an eye out for the IMS bearing. These cars are a bit better with that. The later year 08s are definitely a little bit more safe. If you want to do a little bit safer, go 09, 10, 11, and 12. Then you'll definitely be safe when it comes to the IMS bearing. Also, another thing you have to be careful of is bore scoring. You have to make sure that you warm up your motor first in the morning, especially when it's kind of cold out. So you got to wait till the oil temp is about 150 degrees, just a little bit over 150. And once you get to that point, you should be okay. And you can start revving it out past 3,000 RPM. So keep it below 3,000 RPM to begin with, and then you can start revving it out more since then. Another thing you have to watch out for is leaks. So RMS leak, you have to watch out for any oil leaks, any coolant leaks. It's not very common, but you will and you might get an RMS leak on these vehicles. Another thing too is these cars do go through brakes, so you have to keep an eye out for that. One thing to change about this vehicle is I definitely recommend putting PPF on the interior side, the wheel well of each wheel, because what happens is, since I live on a dirt road, what happens is it'll shoot rocks up into that paint and it starts damaging that paint. So definitely, if you're going to own one of these and you might go on dirt roads, or just for safety, put PPF in those wheel wells for sure. Clutch on these cars is pretty solid. It's got a bit of weight to it, so it's pretty interesting trying to control it. It's a little bit like some of American muscle cars. The closest I'd say to this clutch feeling would be something like a Dodge Challenger. Dodge Challenger clutch is a bit heavier, but this car for sure is a little bit lighter, but it still has that weight to it. These clutches are pretty solid in general, and they can take up quite a bit of power. Another thing too with this car is you will get some looks, not as many as other exotic cars, but people do appreciate them. Just when I was washing it for the first time, I had some guy come over to me, and just when I was washing this car, just before I sold it, I had a guy come up to me in an FJ Cruiser and start talking to me a bit about this car. He wanted to know how much I was asking for it. if you really like the look of the 997 generation Porsche 911. Now, with the 997 generation Porsche 911, this is really kind of the last car that's organic and raw from Porsche. It is also one of the last cars that was offered in pretty much in a manual for a while, especially when you come to think about the GT3 was offered in a PDK right away, and it took a few years, the 911R and the 991.2 GT3 to be offered in manual. This car was really a great option. It was a daily driver, it's comfortable, it makes you feel good when you drive it, and especially the quality of this vehicle was really something that you could kind of put a smile on your face about. But the price range, there's definitely a lot of other cars out there that are kind of within this budget that you can work with. But for a 911, 997, really, I mean, you got Corvette C5s, you got maybe Audi S4s, but there really aren't many coupes in this price range besides maybe the BMW M4, the M3. You've got a couple Audi S5s, maybe a couple other cars that are kind of in that range, but really for the performance and the price, this is kind of the best thing you can get. And that's definitely why I picked the 997.1 Carrera 4S. Now, I wanted the Carrera 4S all-wheel drive because, more specifically, I wanted to focus on the ability to handle the vehicle, and I really wanted the wide hips for the resale value because those wide hips definitely help a lot. This car also handles extremely well. It takes those corners well. Now, it's not a car that you want to buy if you're looking for a straight 60 car. That would be something like a BMW or maybe other cars like a Corvette or something, or a Mustang. But definitely for the type of vehicle it is, it handles corners really well, and that's really where it makes up for it. Now, the car feels a little floaty sometimes on the front end because all the weight's in the back. You do have that rear engine, that 3.8 flat 6 in the back, that boxer engine. And you can definitely feel it, and you feel that grip, and that's what helps with that all-wheel drive in the rear end. But definitely on the front end, you feel a little lighter and a little airy sometimes, and that can be a little bit of a problem. Now, this car is great because you have that all-wheel drive, so you have that traction in the front as well. So it grips for sure. Now, another thing about the 997 is how great this manual gearbox feels. It's extremely tight. Gears are very close together. The gearbox is right next to the steering wheel, which is awesome, so you have that perfect chance to go back to the steering wheel, go back to shifting. It definitely is one of the best in the price range. Now, if I put the car into sport mode and turn on the PASM, you see the car is a bit more bumpy, feels the road a bit more, and I can start taking these corners and feeling the road. Awakens the exhaust.